Hi, this is Kobe Lyons. This is my teaching demo for class I would teach on the introduction to transpersonal approaches to creative expressive arts. And what I'll be demonstrating is talking about the actual practice of doing creative expressive arts or just expressive arts, and include the warm-up exercise, explain that, but also include the background philosophical understanding and transpersonal understanding. So, okay, here we go. Okay, first, before we begin, I would like to start off with the mindfulness practice of meditation, breath, centering. So, sit comfortably. You may close your eyes or choose not to. Put your attention on your breath. Notice your body. Notice your seat as you sit down. Feel your feet on the floor. Notice how you are completely held unconditionally. Breathing normally. Notice your breath. Just notice it going in and out. In and out. If you're sitting in a chair, or you may be on a cushion, rest your gaze in front of you if your eyes are open, or if they're closed, you may keep them closed. If your gaze is resting, then let it rest and not fixed on any one particular thing. Just notice your breath. Now slightly and gently bring your attention more to the out-breath and just let the in-breath happen. Breathing out, following your breath, rest. Then the next out-breath, notice, follow it out. And rest your mind. As thoughts arise, feelings, sensations, sounds, just notice them. Label that thinking and return to the breath. Sit like this for a minute. thinking, return to the breath. Bring your awareness, include the feelings in your body. Starting with where you've been following your breath. Notice your mouth, your nose, your face, your head. Like a slowly growing light, ball of light, expand your awareness into your throat, your chest, shoulders, through your back and out, to your arms, through your torso, to your gut, to your pelvic area, to your sit bone, where your seat meets the chair or the cushion, your hands expanding into the legs, thighs, down to the knees, calves, feet, and into the ground. And expand your awareness outward around you to your environment. Get a sense of your environment. Sounds around you. Notice any smells, the temperature of the air. Abiding in that. Come back, be here, then we'll begin. Thank you for this class. Each class will begin with that brief resting meditation or mindfulness meditation as a way to get started. Excuse me. So welcome. This class this class is the introduction to transpersonal approaches to creative expressive arts. The expressive arts in this sense are something that can be used not only for personal benefit, but in whatever practice you may engage, whether it's therapy, community service, or anything. And in this, I'll be introducing creative expressive arts as a practice, but it's not limited to whether or not you have artistic ability. And I'll explain more of that a little bit later. This class was inspired by a class I took with Dr. Ryan Rominger of Institute of Transpersonal Psychology, now Sophia. And also through him, my mentor, Tom Wolver, who's a sculptor and also has been a retired art therapist and community activist and things like that. Now, in the introduction, I invited people to bring any art materials, so you want to have those ready before we get started. So if you need to get that out, you can go ahead and pause this and get that ready. And the most basic thing would be is just any kind of sheet of paper and some markers or colors, crayons, anything like that, and just have them ready. But it can be a medium of your choice, but something that's easy to use, doesn't require a lot of extra prep work or anything like that, or any extra anything. So now, Either it has many different labels. At CIIS, there's an expressive arts therapy program, and where I came from at Sophia, there was it was a creative expressive arts certification program, which was in conjunction. It was a certification that anyone could take, regardless of the program they were in. Creative expressive arts, or CE, as a practice is different than the work that an artist does. It is transpersonal in nature, so it's a bit like a spiritual practice or a mindfulness practice, because there's a specific way of working. There's a specific intentionality and consciousness to the way of working that invites or gives room for our deeper unconscious. There's no talent required, and so it makes it accessible to anyone. So especially people who have creative tendencies, or even those who do not. This creative expressive arts practice does not require talent, because there's no notion of producing anything in particular. If you want to, you can, and it can support that. But this is it's focused in that particular way. So, speaking to that, is this something that artists need to do or should opt out? It really depends. It depends on the artist. Some artists, from what I observed and my projection, my assumption about it, can rely solely on their talent. They have an idea, they do it, they know how to use the material, they studied it, and so they can produce a variety of things. Some things can be beautiful. It can be some of it can be very theoretical. Some of it can be very what I would call soulful, and anything in between. This particular practice and particular way of working does invite working more subconsciously, more unconsciously, or working with the material that arises. And so what that is, it relates to a phenomenology of art form. And the understanding is that there is a poesis of being open to an image that may arise, or following something intuitively, saying like, okay, I'm open to making something. What am I going to make? And then you just have your materials. Says, okay, I have these materials. What do I want to do? And then just follow your first instinct, your first impulse, and follow that. And it's just riding with it. It's just paying attention to it. In my own personal experience of doing anything creative, whether it's writing poetry or making my clay, sometimes I would have a clear image, or sometimes the words would just come into my mind as if they're channeled through me. Or the image will just come and will just hang there and haunt me until I can put it into clay. And it's a little bit different than if I have an idea for a teapot, or if I want to make a nice little pot. And I'll show some differences with my artwork a little bit later. Now, how do you get into that state of mind? Some artists can just jump right in. They have an idea, they know what to do, they go do it, and boom, 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 boom. I know some people who are phenomenal production artists, and they can whip out like 75 cups or something in a couple hours. Just blows me away. And it's beautiful. The beautiful form, the shape and texture, everything's impressive. Now, in creative expressive arts, and for this class we'll be practicing it, you're invited to do a warm-up exercise first. And we're going to I'll demonstrate the warm-up exercise. I have two examples. One is an older example I did of using paper and the pens, and the one I'll demonstrate here is one where I will take a piece of clay and do what I call a warm-up cup. I'm just make a little simple pinch pot cup. I call them WUP cups. Now, a little bit more about the theory and the background to this. When we're talking about the opening up, what the warm-up does is help us to be decentered and be present to the phenomena that wants to be created. And we start with that which is inside of us, that which is our shadow. Shadow is in this sense, I'm using it with specifically Jungian understanding, and Jung refers to Carl Jung, the Swiss psychologist, who was a contemporary of Freud and eventually broke away. And if you know anything about those two, then you know it's a rich history. If you don't, quickly Jung went beyond Freud's personal understanding of unconscious, the libido and id and things like that, and he discovered what he calls the collective unconscious, deeper unconscious, and coined the concept shadow, which is, of course, the word shadow is a translation from the German. And shadow is literally just that which we are unconscious, those aspects of ourselves of which we are unconscious. But it's something slightly different than the general unconscious, or it's an aspect, because we can have other things that are unconscious, but they're not shadow material. Shadow usually comes out of some sort of wounding or trauma or just social conditioning. For example, we're conditioned on what it means to be a man or to be a woman, to be straight or even gay or black, white, whatever, any kind of a race or anything like that. There's this kind of a conditioning on the way we're supposed to be, and those create shadow, because there could be something in us that just doesn't quite fit, and then yet to survive, unless we make what some would call a hero's journey, or the hero's action to resist that, we will just conform just to get along because it's easier. And so the aspects of the shadow can be either things that are negative, like we're taught not to hit. The impulse to hit and to be violent is sublimated. And that's a good thing. Because the impulse to want to hit, to act out, it's not necessarily something positive to cultivate. On the other hand, there can be what's called gold in the shadow, and that could be talents or skills. For example, my own personal examples, when I aspired as a young child to be an artist, and I was asked the question what I wanted to do, said I wanted to be an artist. And the next question was, well, how are you going to make money doing that? And, I was just a kid, I don't know, didn't think of that. And eventually came around to, well, I have the option of being a commercial artist, and I knew I didn't want to do that. So I got away from my creativity, and I started just to deny that I could be an artist. I said, well, I don't fit this criteria, so I can't call myself an artist. And I just resigned myself to the occasional moments of creativity and or writing a poem, but I would never allow to call myself a poet. I would never allow myself to call myself an artist, even though I'd love to do art. So I just stopped. I stopped cultivating that practice, and that became part of my shadow, denying that aspect, denying myself as an artist, as a poet. And then when I did my own practice, that was healed, and I was learning. I've learned to how to accept calling myself that. And when I say it, it's still sometimes uncomfortable because I still carry these notions of what an artist is supposed to be. Now, why do this? Why do this work? Why have a creative expressive arts practice? Well, one, as I mentioned, there is that healing component to it. For me, I am so much happier when I'm in the studio working. And this week, I've not been able to go to the studio, so I'm itching to get back in there. And that's a part of myself that I had denied for decades. And then now that I'm doing it, it's an important part of my life. And it's something I'll carry with me and something I will use in my own work, my practice. Because now, rather than being just simply a therapist of whatever form I take, I will be a creative expressive arts therapist or an expressive arts therapist. Because now I have this practice to draw from and this experience, and then I know how to guide people in that way. And if I become a teacher or some other guide, I still have this experience, and I can use my sense, my knowing of creativity and my knowing and being as an artist to benefit others. So not only does it benefit me, but in helping me to be more complete, more whole, I'm able to help others from that place of wholeness, from the experience of wholeness. And that's one direction that it takes transpersonally. There's also, in the sense of when we heal ourselves, we heal the world. And one way I think about that is thinking that as we have our unconscious, we also share in the collective unconscious. And that goes out in different layers. We have the familial and unconscious that we live. We have the regional. We have, like, for our hometown, all the assumptions and things like that. We share in that unconscious. We share in the unconscious of whatever state or region we live in whatever country. We have the country's unconscious. We share in that. And then the global unconscious. We share in that as a humanity. As human beings, where there's the global understanding of certain things that everyone shares. And so in that way, we are all connected. And in many ways, we're all interconnected. I subscribe to the notion that the sense of being a separate I is an illusion, because we are so interdependent upon one another. And we're interdependent on many conditions that there is no one particular I that makes up me. Because just take away one simple condition like air, I would cease to exist. I would just not be able to breathe, and my body would deteriorate, and I would dissipate in some way. Maybe some aspects of my consciousness and my karmic seeds and things like that and proclivities will manifest in another way. That's a different topic. But my point is that whatever we do for ourselves, we do for others. And whatever we do for others, we do for ourselves. Because we are usually, you can't pull the thread on a rug without affecting the whole rug or our shirt. So to me, that's the transpersonal component. We have the personal component where there's this personal experience of healing and wholeness. And then we have the transpersonal component to where what we do affects others. I notice that when I get away from my own practice, for example, my own spiritual practice and my own clay practice, I become a bit more irritable. Just a little bit more edgy. I drive a little bit more faster, a little bit more aggressive. I'll snap when I don't have to. Like a snap a response rather than just responding in a calm way. But when I re-engage in my practice, that which really fulfills me, that which really satisfies me, and and feeds my soul, if you will, feeds the spirit, then there's a greater sense of well-being. And whenever I'm in this feeling of well-being, then I'm benefiting others, because I'm driving more calmly. I'm not affected by people who make these decisions that I would otherwise interpret as rude, such as cutting me off or whatever. If somebody responds to me with a bad, snappy tone, I don't respond in kind. I just take it, listen to them, and have a different perspective. And also I just feel more calm. I just feel happier, feel more at peace than being on edge. Now the creative expressive arts, so in this sense, as a practice, may or may not have those same results. But what it does do is that it opens you up to the process of working creatively. And since this is what this course is about, this is a very key component. Okay, so I'm going to have a demonstration video showing up shortly. And so what I do with my own personal practice, okay, I'm going to pause it here, get myself ready, and then I'll come back. Okay, I'm back. Thank you. Okay, so I'm set up. I have my material, in this case a ball of clay. I have some water, which I will need, and a towel. And my tools are nearby if I need those. Now, when doing the warm-up exercise and leading into the project that the students will do each week in this course, it's important to set aside some time in which you will be undisturbed. You will need to be able to focus and perhaps have some privacy. And if not, at least have a way to be able to block out any distractions so that you can be focused in a particular way. So I'm going to move the camera, focus a little bit to show. So as I work with the clay, close my eyes, and I just feel the material on my hand. And just start working it. And I am keeping my eyes closed. So forth. Okay, I'm going to stop there for the sake of this video. And already I'm feeling very present and calm, much like I did after our meditation. And I'm ready to work. So maybe later I'll do some clay work. I have to do it at home. I don't think I have time to go to the studio. So I'll stop there with the demonstration. And after the warm-up exercise is done, you just set aside the piece. Don't pay attention to the result of it, because that's not the intention. The intention is to notice how you feel afterwards. And then begin with the materials that you want to work with. In this class, each week a student will be offered a set of choices of materials, and that'll change each week. And with the options, the students are encouraged to pick something that is new to them. Like, say, for example, if one of these students is an artist who paints using acrylic, maybe instead of use acrylic, use oil or watercolor. Or if you want to stretch, use pastels, or oil pastels, or chalk pastels, or clay. And when I use clay, because I do fire my pieces, I use that type of ceramic clay. You can also get the air dry, the plastique, and those kinds, and those work just as fine for this particular practice. And those you can paint afterwards if you wish to continue the piece. And I'm talking for the project and not for the warm-up exercise. Warm-up exercise, you may end up saving or discarding them. For the purposes of the class, you would save them to show those, and then show the work that followed. And pause one more time. Get the pieces for quick showing the difference of what the different things look like. Okay, I'm back. Now what I'm going to show you, I have essentially three sets of pieces, and I have what I call my warm-up pieces, which started me on this practice, doing my whoop cups, as I call them. And then I will show you a piece from a class, or I'll show you a piece where I was working from the creative expressive arts methodology or style that I'm talking about, working with the shadow, working from the unconscious, to where I'm following the piece that wants to be created. And I'll show you a piece that came out from doing a class. Whether or not there's any truly discernible difference in quality, whether it's more soulful or not, that'll be hard to speak to. But so I'll just show them. Okay. First this is one of the first teapots I did, little pinch pots. I was not concerned with whether or not the edges were straight or anything like that, and I called it teacup. And it's not a bad in terms of pinch pot. The edges are fairly even, but and the glazing turned out nicely, and it turned out to be a practice piece to develop my glazing techniques. This was another one. As you can tell, the form is still rough, and I give myself permission, especially as someone who's a bit of a perfectionist, to make something that's rough. Not make it perfect. Here's another one. This one is Whoop Cup 4. So there's a few before and after this one. And here I started, even though it was a warm-up exercise, I still engaged in the practice of just following it and trying a different shape, making it square. Of course, there's no intention to make it useful, but there are some people who may say, oh, you can use that for a salt dish, or you can use that for a creamer. Yeah. So, and they sometimes use that voice. Here's another one. This one actually I did after a whoop cup, and was just working with form. Just wanted to continue the exercise. This one is another. I'm using this as my water bowl, so it has water in it, so I need to be careful. But you see how it's still early on, and so like I had these folded edges because honestly I really didn't know what to do with the clay as it was kind of getting out of control. So I just allowed myself to try something different and following the material, and that's an important process. Now, after doing What Cup, I designed this piece. This was a piece that came to me as an image and haunted me, if you will. And it's hard to see with this lighting, but there's actually 3 types of white glaze on there to give this kind of a milky effect. And those are little eyes and mouths. And the notion of this, there was a particular idea of the what's called the hungry ghost in the it's a type of being in the Tibetan Buddhist cosmology that represents longing, attachment for things, wanting, and they're typically beings that are always hungry. They have distended, empty bellies, long, thin necks, and tiny mouths, and so they can never get enough food. So I made the cheeks gaunt, to show that they can't really even be properly filled, and the eyes are slightly bulging, as if it's just the eyes themselves are reaching out, like when we really want something. And of course, the mouths and tongues and things like that. So this, I could do an aesthetic analysis and see what part of my own shadow was expressed in this, and I can see, and there's at a certain level to where I have a certain wanting for things, especially when I'm feeling like I want things to be different than they are, and having a hard time to accept what I have, rather than accepting what I have, wanting something else out there. The whole grass is greener on the other side kind of thing. This is an early piece. It was actually, this figure was created in a rough form, and I just took to carving it, and I was working in it early on. This is some very early work, relatively speaking, but it's a way of working intentionally with shadow and following the forms and seeing what needed to be expressed. And then lastly are pieces that are created in the class with just the notion of learning how to make a certain type of piece. Here is a certain kind of a box. Learn how to make a lid. Learning how to glaze. It's a very simple slab piece. Not a lot of shadowy oomph, but it's kind of fun and whimsical. Here's my first thrown pot. As you can see, I did not do a very good job, but I still kept it and attempted to work with the misshapen form and make something sculptural with it. So showing those different types of pieces is my intention is to to try to see if there's a way to differentiate between, just doing something that's a warm up versus where you're working with something that's calling from a deeper place, something that's calling from the unconscious, something that needs to be spoken, and it could either be from your own personal shadow or unconscious, or something deeper and greater. For example, even in my little hungry ghost statue, that there's something that's very personal for me, but there's also something that is more global, that touches people who've experienced that kind of longing. Okay, that's it. Thank you for your time. If there's any questions, certainly feel free to ask. And I look forward to seeing whatever came up from your warm-up exercise if you choose to show that.